Welcome to Bite Size Dental Marketing. Today, it's the read of the week. It's
Oh
Friday
yeah.
morning. We have Ian, Stephanie, Andre with me. Two new guests. This is awesome. Um, well, let's go around. I'll go first. Today, or this week, I started reading a book called The Lion Tracker's Guide to Life. And it's written by a South African, Boyd Vardy.
No way.
Londolozi.
Lond
Am I saying that?
London. Can you spell it to
The
me and
game
then I can maybe
reserve. No, I can't
it
spell it. I can't even say
it's
it.
it's one of the game reserves in South Africa.
It's a game
It
reserve in
must.
South Africa. Yeah,
That's good.
I was really excited to read it because of the South African connection and kind of the thesis that I'll get into later. But yeah, I was really excited. It's been fun. Stephanie, what you got?
I am reading a book called Flourish, and it's with Stacy Francis. I was looking for something that could expand my spiritual growth. That's where it came from. And it actually has a mix of that and a mix of our talents, which I'm excited to talk about. What you got, Andre?
Well, I just started reading $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. I've been really getting into content creation and messaging, really focusing on redefining our messaging on our site. And I think part of what we need to put in the front and center is what is the value that we offer. And so, I'm hoping that that'll help me put together a very clear, concise, offer for our prospective clients to understand what we do.
That's awesome. So for me, I really like I wouldn't call it biohacking, but biooptimization. So anything like improving the body or habits or how can I be a better person. So those are generally the type of articles and books that I stick to. The one that I've been reading this week and I looked at is titled The Scientific Argument for Mastering One Thing at a Time by James Clear. And I think that really applies to me because if I could do 10,000 projects at once, I would. But this article is showing me why sticking to one thing at a time is definitely the most productive one, as told by science. So I'm excited to share a bit about that.
Now, Ian, have you read James Clear's Atomic Habit already or no?
No, I have not. I have not. I'm happy that you know about the author, though.
Yeah.
It's definitely some interesting, and I've had him before as a read of the week. So definitely a good author to look at.
Well,
so Eric, you're going to tell us a bit more. I want to hear about this game reserve and this South African. You've tickled my fancy. I need to know what's going on.
Yeah, so his name's Boyd Vardy, and it's the Londolozi Game Reserve, and it's way up there, the northeast section of the country. And this guy's, like a third or fourth generation on this reserve. The book is written around, it's about reconnecting with your inner self. And it has to do with, there's nothing in the wild needs a coach to discover who it is. And as we lose our way through life and, either our value or our direction, we've actually lost something more instinctual. And that it talks about the threats of our life today are the shoulds and the shoulds of life. Like I should be, this, I should be that, and the comparison. And it just takes, and it's such a wonderful book. And I enjoyed reading it. But I actually downloaded the audio version and it found it so much more enriching because his accent, and he talks in the local dialect, and he'll weave together like why, what they call a panther or what they call a lion. But it really is just about, he applies his tracking and the tracking of these lions and these game reserves into finding your, reconnecting with nature and ultimately embracing like your innate authenticity. And his things, if you stop looking outward at the world and you begin to look inward, you connect more with like, yourself as a human being. And once you can do that, now you can align your passions and begin to make a positive impact on the world around you. But you have to look internal first. And so it was wonderful. He does such, and one of the pleasant surprises I found is because now I can't just buy a book now. I have to buy the book and I have to buy the audiobook or I'm never going to get through it. But I fell in love with the audiobook because it's the author reading it. He didn't staff it out. It's him reading it, and he just brings
Always
so
better.
much heart, much heart to it.
Always.
Yeah.
Funny enough, Eric, in the very beginning of the book that I'm reading, he talks about, as a little bit of a life hack, is if you read the book as you're listening to the audiobook at the same time, that your retention goes up some massive amount because you're receiving the information two different ways at the same time, and it just sticks more. So you're doing that, without even knowing.
That sounds like a hack. That sounds like a hack to me. That sounds like I need to start doing.
I'm going to have to try to do it at the same time. I find that I will read the book, I'll read half a chapter or whatever, and then I'll jump in the car and I'll find the chapter and I'll pick back up. And, I probably need to.
You're not doing it at the same time.
I'm not doing it at the same time, but I probably should.
Well, so no benefit for you then.
No benefit.
It would be really tough to read the book and have the audiobook playing at the same time. That would be.
Is it more your eyes are following though? Like, is it like your eyes are just following and seeing the words, then actually, you're hearing it.
I'm sure you've done some sort of session where one person's reading the book out loud and everybody else is just following along. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Except for your one person.
Yeah, it seems more difficult.
Stephanie, what do you got?
Mine actually is really similar to yours. Like, I was looking for something that could bring me out of the chaos and the noise a little bit and bring me back down to myself. And it sounds kind of where you were going. I'm only 3 chapters in, but the author talks about how everybody has a creative ability. And I lose that sometimes because I am not artistic. I cannot sing a tune. There is nothing outwardly creative about me. Like, I think about Ian. Ian is a singer, like he's a musician. But I have a different kind of creative ability because I am organized and I can stay on top of things, whereas, love you, Ian, not so much. So I think that we all have these abilities that we're given. And she talks about how we're only given the amount of talent that we can hold. So I was not given, the creative ability for singing and artistic because I'm already full of my operational ability, so to speak. And I thought that was interesting because the book talks about how when we're on social media and we're looking at Instagram and everybody's life looks so amazing online, right? And it makes us envious of what they have and who they are and what they can do that we can't do. That's where we kind of get lost a little bit because we're not thinking about our own talent, whatever it may be. We're thinking about the talent other people have that we want. And why wasn't I given the ability to sing? Well, that's fine. I don't need to sing. No one wants to hear it anyway. I was given other abilities and other talents. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing where the book goes with that. And it does bring in like biblical references, which is really important to me. So I'm glad to see like how she ties it all together between the real world that we live in and the voice that God has put in us on the talents that he set up for us as individuals.
That sounds like a good book. It's a good book.
Does it give a breakdown of how to find your skills? Because I've always wondered how to find mine.
Not yet. I'll let you know if it does. I'll hand it off to you if it gives the secrets.
Life hacks.
Similar to you, Kristen and I were talking about this the other day. In some form of my life, I've always had some variation of a creative department from, mostly being in consumer-facing web stuff. And then, so, there's that. And then there's the developers that I worked with that were much more talented than I was as a developer. I'm surrounded by all this like raw talent sometimes. And they're painting with oil canvases and I've got my watercolors over here.
Right. Exactly.
My crayons. Yeah.
Right. It's like when we did Poem and Portrait over the holidays last year and everyone sang a song and I'm like, can I just read this poem that I kind of wrote? Like it makes you feel a little bit lesser than because you don't have that ability. But if we look at ourselves, we don't need that because we have something else.
Yeah. Well, they do say, there's a quote out there, I don't know who I read it from, but they say that comparison is the enemy of joy.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
if you're comparing. There's always going to be someone better, faster, stronger, more talented, any of
But
the things that you perceive to be important.
it's in a different way. And I think that that's what we need to remember is like, you may be faster than me. We have run a race. You are faster than me. And that's okay because I'm faster than you in other areas. And I think that we just have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That was
the
a
beauty
good
of a
day, though.
team.
That was a
It
good
was a good
day
day.
running around downtown Rochester, Minnesota.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do
Well,
you have,
Andre,
Andre?
yeah, go ahead.
I feel out of place after these really deep thought kind of books that you guys read. Here I am with a $100 million offer.
It matters.
You've just already read our books. You're just more evolved than we are.
Sure. Um, so I think so. The basic. I'm also in the very beginning of the book, so I haven't gotten the secret to any of it yet. But the basic premise of it is, if you make your value proposition so good that anyone would be silly not to give it a shot, and then you can actually deliver on it. That's the key to this massive growth. Alex, I don't know a whole lot about his story other than what I've read in the first introduction chapter, but he started as a company doing some sort of program where he would come to your gym and use his talents and his network to sell out your gym, and then he'd move to another gym. It was called Gymshark, I think, and it took off really well. But then at some point, some things fell down. And he had to make this massive gamble of paying his commissions to his salespeople and all that, and being in the negative, and have to run for a few months just on credit card. So he talks a little bit about that journey, but by changing the way that he was positioning his product and actually delivering on the offer, I mean, he's worth a massive amount now because he's done that same principle in several multiple businesses now. And so I'm excited because I think as an agency, we do such amazing work. And I think oftentimes when we were talking to a prospect, we don't encapsulate really what we're about. They think that we're selling just SEO and websites and all that, just like everyone else. But I think we're so much more than that. And I want to get better at communicating so that we can truly help more people and work with the clients that we want to work with because they see the big picture and the total package, if you will.
I like that a lot.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I know of him adjacently, but I know that he was, he's on a lot of podcasts, but I really connected with him because he talks a lot about, funny enough, authenticity and vulnerability. I think that I remember him telling a story one time of, I think what you're talking about, the like the hard times. And yeah, I mean, he's a bear of a man, like big, powerful guy. And he told this story about how, he was, I think I'm getting it right, that he was basically, on the floor crying and his girlfriend was holding him because like just his world had fallen apart. And he just had this really good, vulnerable story about, what it means to be a man and things like that. But he's a pretty fascinating guy. I like him.
Yeah. So I'm excited to share more as I get into it.
I think it's important because, we've talked about so often as an agency, we celebrate whenever things are going really well. But at the same time, whenever whomever it is that we're working with is having a hardship, we need to be there for them during that too.
So do you guys want to hear a little bit more about some scientific arguments about mastering?
3 minutes, Ian. 3 minutes, buddy.
I'm watching the clock.
You can watch the clock. It's not. I don't want to spoil it for the listeners who are going to go and have a look at this afterwards, because it really is something interesting in terms of, I know very often for us as people, it's like, okay, but where's the facts? Like, how's that? And I know, Stephanie, this is completely the opposite of the book that you're doing, which is all about the spiritual journey. But as you said, people are different in different ways. Mm-hmm. And for me, definitely, I like seeing, okay, and I know, Andre, you're similar in this way too. It's like, okay, give me where's the data points, where's the KPIs? And they use science here, and especially, essentially, James Clear goes through how you can see that by focusing on one thing, you will improve. So I don't want to do the whole thing. I just want to read a small part from the intro just to give our listeners an idea. And then just one section that stood out to me here about what actually happens when we focus on one thing as human beings. So it kicks off like this. Many people, myself included, have multiple areas of life they would like to improve. For example, I would like to reach more people with my writing, to live to live a healthier life, lift heavier weights at the gym, Andre, to start practicing mindfulness and be more consistent. And those are just a few goals that I find desirable. And I'm sure each of us have our own long list of things that we would like to improve and that we would like to be better at and be more consistent in. The problem is, even if we are committed to working hard on our goals, our natural tendency is to revert back to our old habits at some point. We've all experienced that too, I'm sure, myself included. And making a permanent lifestyle change as a human being happens to be really, really difficult. And recently, I've come across a few research studies that will make these difficult lifestyle changes just a little bit easier. And as you'll see, however, the approach to mastering many areas of your life is to start with one. And so that's kind of the intro to the article, and then I'll hop forward a little bit just to give the listeners a glimpse into what happens when you focus on one thing. So here's another science-based reasons for focusing on one thing at a time. When you begin practicing a new habit, it requires a lot of conscious effort to remember to actually do it. After a while, however, the pattern of behavior becomes easier, and eventually your new habit becomes a normal routine, and the process is more or less mindless or somewhat automatic. And researchers have a fancy term for this process called automacity. And automacity is the ability to perform a behavior without even thinking about each step, which allows the pattern to become automatic and habitual. And for the most important thing that they kind of get down to is that there's always a tipping point. And we as human beings need to recognize that first climb of actually getting something started. I know Eric Weatherd was kicking off the podcast and actually recording episodes and getting it going. Andre, I know you've taken quite a big step in waking up early and going to the gym and staying in that routine, which I'm trying to work on right now. And man, I'm not at that tipping point yet. I can tell you that. Just that first. So for our listeners, just here they say that the study found that the average habit takes about 66 days to fall into that automatic behavior. So if you're at week 2 and you're like, man, why am I not excited about getting up this morning? It's because science is telling you that it takes at least 66 days to even get to that tipping point. So very, very interesting read. I definitely recommend if you're somebody that wants to understand a bit better how the brain works and how we fall into automaticity, the very big word there for everyone. And by doing this, I think we could actually give ourselves a bit more grace and realize that, okay, I want to get to that point. And once I get there, things should get a bit easier. So that's my read of the week.
That's really interesting because I think we were always told it was 21 days to build
I
a
was about to bring
habit.
that up too.
Now we're tripling.
I mean,
well, maybe it's 21 days to build a beginning of a habit, but 66 to become automatic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You're not going to take a run at that, Andre?
Take a run.
That word?
Automaticity.
I know my talents.
At least you're aware.
Now,
yeah,
how
talk
long
about
is
having
this?
plans.
How long is your total article or there, Ian?
No, it's not. This would probably take about 5-6 minutes to read. It has about 4 or 5 sections, so it's not very long, but it just kind of, what I love about these articles, and I think Andre, from your experience with James Clear, what he captures really well is it's bite-sized, similar to this podcast, but it gives you perspective, and you can think. It gives you that ability to think about things in a certain way. Like now that I've just read this, I'm like, damn, okay, so I am actually a little bit hard on myself, thinking like day 3, why am I not ripped yet?
Right.
And like running up a mountain, like that's not how this works. Like you have to actually train the brain. You have to be consistent, and have a plan. And that's the last piece that he goes into, is saying that we are 2 to 3 times more likely to actually go through with something and successfully complete it if you set a plan out for yourself, like this, at this time, this is what I want to be doing because this is X and this is Y. And by following through on that plan, we're more likely to succeed rather than being like, okay, I'll go gym like 3 times this week. It'll be good. Because then you're less likely to follow through. So it's a goodie.
Well, I think that wraps us up. That was your Bite of Dental Marketing and Read of the Week.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.